Good morning, grade 1-2 class, and welcome to our music class. And this would be Friday, May 14th lesson. I hope you've been listening lots and lots to Cooperation Hop, and even though we're not going to be able to necessarily perform it next week, which was our original plan, we're not going to put it aside and imagine that we're never doing it, because hopefully we will have a chance to perform it. So keep listening to that. And remember, you people who are on the bells, all of you were assigned bells. When it's your turn, even when you're practicing, just step forward for I'll do my part, you do yours, and have your bell imagining for each of those. And I think last week I suggested you could even use a pair of spoons and hit them like this. Even though they won't be pitched, you can practice the rhythm with them. Okay, what I'd like you to do is to grab your worksheet that I would have assigned you last week that looked like this, the matching one, okay? And what you were to do was to take each of these words and to match them to the appropriate picture over here. So the first line said bass clef. So if you took your pencil or pen, preferably pencil, and you went from here and drew over to that, you would be correct. The second was a half note. Remember, a half note's an open note with a stick. That would be the correct answer for there. Moving on, a sharp sign, which we talked about a while ago, not very long ago, and it looked like the tic-tac-toe sign, and that's our sharp sign. So you would draw or match from there to there. The other thing on the list coming down is a quarter note. Quarter note's worth 1 beat. And if you match it up there, you would be correct. Then we had an eighth note, which is worth half a beat. And we're going to review those shortly. But it would go up here to that note, okay? That would be an eighth note. Now, a treble clef. Now, you'll notice that these have 2 Fs. Occasionally, we see it spelled with 2 Fs, clef, but most of the time we see it spelled with 1 F. So if you ever write it and put 1 F, it's still correct. So the treble clef was way up at the top. If you attach that to that, you would be correct. A whole note, now it gets easier as you go along because there's less options to choose from, but a whole note would take you right to there. And finally, a flat sign would be the last one left right there. So if you connected those up like that, give yourself a star for doing that, or a sticker or something special. Well done. All right, let's put that aside now. And if you can pull out your assignment for this week, we will quickly go over it. So this week's assignment for grade 1-2 would look like this. Music math. So this is going to take all the information you just had on the other one and use it over here. Now, it also has a review at the top, which makes this much easier. So what you simply do is you add the note values. Now, I'm not going to ask you to answer it with another note. For instance, what it would say by that was, say, 2 quarter notes, each worth 1 beat, would equal a half note. You could draw a half note there, or you could simply write 2 beats, as it says there. Some of them are notes that are longer notes than we have learned yet to draw. So you can just answer them with the correct number and the word beats beside it. So go on through that. Let me just review over here, okay? Let's start with our biggest note. Our whole note is worth 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Our dotted half note is worth 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. Our half note is worth 2 beats. 1, 2. Our quarter note is worth 1 beat. 1. And then finally, our eighth notes, which we can see in 2 forms. Sometimes they stand alone, and they look like that with a tail. Sometimes, and very often, we see them come in pairs, as we do in our Pilgrim's Progress story. But one of them alone is called a half note, an eighth note, and it's worth half a beat. It's a very quick note. So that's a quick review on that. Now, of course, you have already seen all of these notes, except the whole note, in our Pilgrim's Progress story, which we're going to review shortly, okay? You have your Pilgrim's Progress sheet like this. And I hope you filled in all of the proper rhythms here, because eventually I want to be able to take this down. For instance, today we're not adding a new rhythm, so we don't really need to have that. What I'm going to do is slide this over, and if you haven't got them done, your parents could freeze this right at this next shot, and you could finish filling them in and then continue on with the story when we're ready to go. So I'm going to turn this for you so you can take one more look at it, okay? And I'll try and be out of the way so you get a good view, okay? And we can just talk quickly about all of them. So the very bottom one is Celestial City, okay? Eighth note, half note, eighth note. Okay, so let's go to the top, to the first one on your sheet, City of Destruction. So write that in. Pilgrim, who now we're calling Christian, okay, which is still going to be 2 beats. Evangelist, 4 quarter notes. Celestial City, we already did. Gate of Decision. Mr. Goodwill. Palace Beautiful. So what I want you to do is make sure that your sheet that looks like this has all the appropriate rhythms. And then as I tell the story, you're able to move along with me doing each of these rhythms. What I'm going to do today is try and stop briefly after each one of the rhythms and allow you to do the rhythm on your own, okay? I know it breaks up the story, so we want to make sure that you're understanding and enjoying the story, but we want to be learning as we do that as well. Okay, so make sure you have something to do for a rhythm instrument, all right? And we will get ready to begin Pilgrim's Progress. I'm just lining up our notes. Alrighty, do you have a rhythm instrument? Good job. So we last left Pilgrim off. He had just reached through the gate of decision where he had gotten rid of his burden by asking for forgiveness from the good king's son. And Mr. Goodwill had instructed to him that it was now time for him to continue on his journey. But before he headed to the Celestial City, he needed to stop at the Palace Beautiful. Pilgrim, or Christian Pilgrim, was making such great time that he got to the Palace Beautiful long before dark. Remember, now he no longer had his burden, so his travels were very, very quick. And as he came up, remember last week he said he heard this beautiful music, but he was kind of wondering, should I stay or should I go? Meaning he could continue on and get to the Celestial City even sooner. But then he remembered that Evangelist and Mr. Goodwill had always given him good instructions and he needed to follow. So he came up to the gate of the Palace Beautiful and he reached up and the gate was opened. And a man was standing there and he looked so incredibly friendly. And he said, "Sir, who are you?" And Pilgrim, Christian Pilgrim, said, "My name is Christian." And the gentleman at the gate continued to ask, "Well, how did you get here? What was the journey so far?" Because he wanted to make sure that Christian had traveled through the gate of decision, had acknowledged the good king and asked for forgiveness. And that's how his burden was removed. And once he had answered all the questions correctly, the gentleman at the gate left him in the Palace Beautiful. Well, Pilgrim, Christian Pilgrim, was so excited to get inside, and now he could hear the music even more clearly, and it was a beautiful song. And he quickly realized as he got in the door of all the people who were creating that beautiful, beautiful music. And he was excited because, remember, Mr. Goodwill had said there would be something very special for him at the Palace Beautiful. So when they invited him in, they said, "You must be a hungry traveler." And Christian thought, "Yeah, I'm actually super hungry." And so they sat him down to a delicious banquet at the table, food like he had never tasted before. Everything seemed so much brighter and so much better and so much tastier since he had gotten rid of his burden of sin. And when he was done eating, he began to yawn, not realizing till then how tired he was, but he didn't want to miss out on what they'd had to give him, promised by Mr. Goodwill. They led him down a hall and he thought, well, I'm going to see what they have for me. But instead, they led him into a room that had a very comfy bed. And above the bed was this plaque that said, "When you lie down, you shall not be afraid. When you shall lie down, your sleep shall be sweet." Well, Pilgrim put his head on that pillow, and instantly he fell sound asleep. He slept so peacefully. And it wasn't till the next morning when they knocked on his door gently and invited him for breakfast that he had realized how well he had slept. So they took him back down to the room, the big banquet hall, and again they had another meal. And again, he was so hungry and enjoyed the food so much. But in the back of his mind, he kept saying, where is the things that I was to receive, that I was needing for the rest of my journey, promised by Mr. Goodwill? Well, after he was done eating, they said, "Now we're going to take you down to the armory room." The armory room? He'd never been to a room like that. And when they walked in, he saw it was full of all kinds of pieces of armory. There was a belt for him and a breastplate for him. There was a sword for him and a shield for him. And there were shoes for him. He put them all on. And they said, "Don't ever forget the most important piece of armory, the sword, the word of God. Every day take it with you. Keep your eyes reading it." But we have one more important piece of instruction for you, Christian. There are two things you must never forget to do, never ever forget to do, as you continue on your journey to the celestial city. Those two things are to watch and to pray. Don't forget, every day, watch and pray. Of course, said Pilgrim. Of course, I won't forget to do those. I'm now a Christian, Pilgrim. And so they opened the door and they bade him farewell and wished him the best of journeys. But they did once more remind him. What did they remind him to do? Say it with me. To watch and to pray. We'll find out how Pilgrim's journey continues when we get together next time. Have some fun this week with Cooperation Hop. Don't forget to work on your worksheet, and we will take that up next time we're together. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.